I never thought a simple kiss would change my entire life. But there I was, standing on my front porch with Sarah's lips pressed against mine, when I noticed my neighbor Mike watching from across the street, his face a storm of emotions I couldn't quite read. If you're wondering how this awkward moment led to one of the most profound friendships I've ever known, stick around. And if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more real-life stories that remind us how unexpected connections can heal even the deepest wounds. The spring evening had been perfect until that moment. Sarah and I had just finished our third date, dinner at a new Italian place downtown where we'd talked for hours about everything and nothing. I liked her. She was smart, funny, and seemed genuinely interested in my boring stories about architectural design. When we reached my front door, the kiss felt natural, a perfect end to a perfect night. Until I opened my eyes and saw Mike. Mike Coleman had moved in across the street about 6 months earlier with his daughter Emma, a quiet 10-year-old with sad eyes and tangled hair that never seemed properly brushed. The neighborhood gossip network quickly filled me in: widower, wife died of cancer 2 years ago, struggling single dad trying to start fresh. We'd exchanged the obligatory neighbor nods and occasional waves, but nothing more. What I hadn't expected was the look of raw pain on his face that night, not anger or judgment, but something deeper. Before I could process it, he'd turned away, disappearing inside his darkened house. "Who was that?" Sarah asked, following my gaze. "Just my neighbor," I replied, but something about the encounter left me unsettled. The next morning, I found myself thinking about Mike's expression while pouring my coffee. I'd recognized something in it, something beyond simple jealousy. It was the face of someone watching something they'd lost forever. I might have left it alone if not for Emma. That afternoon, I spotted her sitting alone on their front steps, knees pulled to her chest, watching other neighborhood kids ride bikes with the longing of someone standing outside a candy store with empty pockets. Without overthinking it, I crossed the street. "Hey there," I said, stopping at a respectful distance. "I'm Jason from across the street." She looked up, suspicious. "I know who you are." "Right." I shifted awkwardly. "I was wondering if your dad's home." "He's inside." She didn't elaborate. "Working on anything interesting today?" I tried again. She shrugged. "Dad says I should stay outside for an hour. Get fresh air." The way she said it, like a prescription rather than play, broke my heart a little. Well, I was about to make some lemonade. Real stuff, not from a mix. My mom's recipe. "Would you like some?" Her eyes lit up briefly before narrowing again. "Dad says not to take things from strangers." "Smart man, your dad. How about I bring some over for both of you? Then you can decide together." 20 minutes later, I was knocking on their door with a pitcher of lemonade and 3 glasses. Mike answered, looking surprised and slightly defensive. "Sorry to intrude," I said quickly. "I just thought, it's hot out, and I made too much lemonade." He stared at me for a long moment before his shoulders relaxed slightly. "That's nice of you." The inside of their house was neat but sparse, moving boxes still stacked in corners, minimal furniture, walls bare except for a single framed photo of a beautiful woman with Emma's eyes and smile. We sat awkwardly in their kitchen. Emma gulped her lemonade enthusiastically while Mike and I attempted small talk. He was a high school English teacher, taking a year's sabbatical to figure things out. I told him about my work designing sustainable housing. The conversation was stilted but not unpleasant. As I was leaving, Mike walked me to the door. "Look," he said suddenly, "about last night." I didn't mean to stare. It just... He trailed off. "It's okay," I assured him. "No explanation needed." "It's been 2 years," he said quietly, "since anyone looked at me the way your girlfriend looked at you." The raw honesty caught me off guard. "She's not actually my girlfriend. Just someone I'm getting to know." He nodded, not meeting my eyes. Well, thanks for the lemonade. That could have been the end of it, a brief, awkward interaction between neighbors. But the next day, I found myself thinking about them again. About Emma's sad eyes and Mike's empty walls. On impulse, I texted Sarah to cancel our weekend plans, claiming a work emergency. Instead, I spent Saturday building a small bookshelf. Carpentry had been a hobby of mine since college. Something about working with my hands helped clear my mind. By Sunday afternoon, I had a simple but sturdy oak shelf, which I carried across the street. Mike answered the door in reading glasses and a faded university sweatshirt. I noticed you didn't have many shelves set up yet, I explained, suddenly feeling foolish. I thought maybe, since you're an English teacher and probably have books. His expression shifted from confusion to something softer. You made this? It's nothing fancy, I shrugged. Just thought it might be useful. He invited me in, and we found the perfect spot for it in their living room. As we positioned it against the wall, Emma appeared, watching curiously. Do you like books? I asked her. She nodded solemnly. Mom used to read to me every night. Mike's face tightened, but he managed a smile. We still read together sometimes, don't we, Em? Not like Mom did, she said with the brutal honesty of children. You don't do the voices right. An uncomfortable silence fell. I cleared my throat. Well, I'm terrible at voices too. But I'm pretty good at building things. If you ever need anything else built, just let me know. As I turned to leave, Mike caught my arm. Would you like to stay for dinner? It's just spaghetti, nothing special, but... He trailed off, looking almost embarrassed. I'd like that, I said, surprised to realize how much I meant it. Dinner was simple but comfortable. Emma gradually warmed up, telling me about her school and how she was learning to play the violin because her mom had played. Mike spoke more freely too, sharing stories about his teaching days and the novel he'd always wanted to write but never found time for. What's stopping you now? I asked. You're on sabbatical, right? He glanced at Emma. Single parenting doesn't leave much mental space for creative pursuits. What if you had help? The words came out before I'd fully thought them through. Help? I work from home most days. Emma could come over after school sometimes if she wanted. Just to give you a few hours. The offer hung in the air. Mike looked stunned, while Emma studied me with renewed interest. Do you have any games? She asked finally. I laughed. A few. And a pretty decent backyard for playing. Mike shook his head. We couldn't impose like that. It's not an imposition if I'm offering, I countered. Besides, I could use the company sometimes. Working from home gets lonely. That was how our unusual arrangement began. 3 afternoons a week, Emma would come to my house after school. At first, Mike was hesitant, checking in frequently and picking her up promptly at 6. But as weeks passed, he relaxed. Emma and I developed our own routines, snacks, homework, then games or crafts while I finished my work. I learned that Emma was brilliant at math but struggled with reading, not for lack of ability but because books reminded her of her mother. I started reading to her while she drew, gradually encouraging her to read passages herself. Mike noticed the change, thanking me with a quiet intensity that made me uncomfortable with gratitude. Sarah and I went on a few more dates, but the spark faded. She was looking for something serious, and I found myself increasingly preoccupied with my afternoons with Emma and occasional dinners with the Colemans. When Sarah and I amicably parted ways, I didn't feel the disappointment I'd expected. Summer arrived, bringing longer days and school vacation. Mike worried about keeping Emma occupied, so I suggested a project, building her a treehouse in the massive oak in their backyard. I can't ask you to do that, Mike protested. You're not asking. I'm offering, I replied. Besides, I've always wanted to build one. The treehouse became our summer obsession. Mike, Emma, and I worked on it every evening and weekend. I taught Mike basic carpentry, and he proved a quick study. Emma designed the interior, complete with bookshelves, of course, and a special telescope window for stargazing. As we worked side by side in the summer heat, something shifted between Mike and me. Our conversations deepened. He told me about meeting his wife in college, their struggles with infertility before Emma, and the devastating 18 months of her illness. I shared my own history, my parents' messy divorce, my string of failed relationships, my fear of never finding what they had before it all fell apart. Maybe what they had wasn't as perfect as you remember, Mike suggested one evening as we shared beers on his porch, watching fireflies rise from the grass. Emma had long since gone to bed. What do you mean? Just that we tend to idealize the past. My marriage to Claire wasn't perfect. We fought sometimes. She drove me crazy with her inability to ever be on time. I frustrated her with my obsessive planning. He smiled at the memory. But it was real. That's what made it worth having. I considered this. I've never had anything real. Not really. Mike studied me for a long moment. Maybe you've been looking for the wrong thing. The treehouse was finished by August, a beautiful, sturdy structure that made Emma squeal with delight. We celebrated with a grand opening picnic, complete with ribbon cutting and Emma's favorite chocolate cake. As the evening wound down, Emma fell asleep on a blanket in the grass, exhausted from excitement. Mike and I sat in lawn chairs, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. I need to thank you, Mike said quietly. For the treehouse? It was fun to build. Not just that. For everything. He gestured vaguely. For seeing us when we were invisible. For giving Emma something to look forward to. For giving me. He paused, searching for words. Space to breathe again. Something in his voice made me turn to look at him. The setting sun cast his face in golden light, highlighting the new laugh lines around his eyes, lines that hadn't been there when we first met. You've done the same for me, I admitted. Before you and Emma, I was just going through the motions. Dating without connection. Working without purpose. And now? Now I have something to come home to. Even if it's just across the street. The moment stretched between us, filled with unspoken possibilities. Then Emma stirred on her blanket, and the spell broke. Mike stood to gather her up, and I helped collect the picnic supplies. As summer faded into fall, our lives remained intertwined. Emma still came over after school, but now Mike often joined us for dinner afterward. We established traditions, Sunday morning pancakes, Friday movie nights, weekend hikes in the nearby state park. The neighbors began to see us as a unit, inviting the three of you to barbecues and holiday gatherings. One evening in late October, Emma asked if she could invite a friend for a Halloween sleepover in the treehouse. It's getting cold at night, Mike hesitated. We could use sleeping bags. Please, Dad. Lily's mom already said it's okay if you say yes. Mike looked at me, silently asking for backup. What if we set up a small space heater? I suggested. I could run an extension cord from the house. It would be perfectly safe. Mike sighed, recognizing defeat. Fine, but Jason and I will check on you every hour. Emma rolled her eyes but agreed. The night of the sleepover, we helped the girls set up their fortress of pillows and blankets in the treehouse, complete with battery-powered fairy lights and snacks. As we walked back to the house, Mike shook his head. When did I become the kind of parent who lets his daughter sleep outside in October? When you realized she needs normal childhood experiences more than absolute safety, I replied. He nodded slowly. Claire would approve. She was always the adventurous one. Inside, we settled on the couch with cups of hot cider spiked with bourbon. Through the window, we could see the treehouse glowing like a lantern in the darkness, occasional giggles floating down. "I've been thinking," Mike said suddenly. "My sabbatical ends in January. The school wants me back." My stomach dropped. "That's good, right? Getting back to normal?" "Normal." He tested the word. "I'm not sure what that means anymore." "You'll figure it out," I assured him, trying to ignore the hollow feeling spreading through my chest. "The thing is," he continued, "I don't want to go back to how things were before." "Before you?" The words hung in the air between us. I set my mug down carefully, afraid my shaking hands would spill it. "What are you saying, Mike?" He turned to face me fully. "I'm saying that somewhere between lemonade and treehouses, you became essential to us. To me." His voice dropped. "I never expected to feel this way again. About anyone. I never expected to feel this way at all," I admitted. His hand found mine on the couch between us, fingers intertwining naturally. "So where does that leave us? Figuring it out together?" I suggested, heart pounding. His smile was answer enough. The transition from neighbors to something more happened so gradually that it felt like the most natural progression in the world. Emma, with her child's adaptability, seemed unsurprised when I began staying over, when my clothes migrated to Mike's closet, when we eventually discussed selling one house and combining our lives officially. "Mom would like you," she told me one day as we planted spring bulbs in what was now our garden. "She always said Dad needed someone who could make him laugh." "I wish I could have met her," I said honestly. "Me too." Emma patted the soil around a tulip bulb. "But I'm glad you're here now." A year after that first awkward lemonade offering, Mike and I stood in our newly renovated kitchen, walls now painted a warm yellow, shelves filled with books and photographs, evidence of a life being built together. Emma was upstairs practicing her violin, the halting notes of "Twinkle, Twinkle" floating down. "Do you ever think about that night?" Mike asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "When I saw you kissing that woman?" I leaned back into his embrace. "Sarah." "And yes, sometimes. I was so jealous," he admitted. "Not because I wanted you then, I didn't even know you. But because you represented everything I thought I'd never have again. Connection. Intimacy. A future." I turned in his arms to face him. "And now? Now I know better." He smiled, the sadness that had once seemed permanent now just a shadow that passed occasionally across his face. "Now I know that sometimes the future finds you when you least expect it. Sometimes it lives right across the street." As Emma's music filled our home, I realized how a single moment, a kiss witnessed by a stranger, had set in motion everything that now gave my life meaning. The family I'd found wasn't what I'd imagined for myself, but it was infinitely more real than anything I'd known before. So if you're watching this and feeling alone, remember that connection can find you in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes healing happens across fences, through simple acts of kindness, in the building of shelves and treehouses and new traditions. Sometimes love isn't about grand gestures but about showing up, day after day, for the people who need you. And sometimes, the most beautiful stories begin with a moment of jealousy that transforms, against all odds, into the greatest blessing you never knew to ask for. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe for more reminders that second chances come in unexpected packages, and that family is something we create together, one day at a time.